hopefully the wind's not going to be too obnoxious, even though it is sounding pretty obnoxious in my own ears. We'll hope that that's not the case. So I wanted to do a podcast because I'm just sort of like, I'm thinking I'm in a place of contemplation about the world and my belief systems in general. And I think it's just worth asking yourself from time to time, like, what actually you feel is the right belief system for you about the world in general, because sorry, I thought we had a technical error there. It doesn't seem to be the case. So what I am alluding to here is, like, for me it's so important to find that, like, line between someone who really is like, the kind of person that you're really not going to want to interact with, and that obviously looks different for everyone. But I think then looking at things from a logistics perspective, and the fact that obviously some people's priorities will give them some form of leeway or another to make choices that kind of make room for their priorities, and therefore they are an asshole. But then it's like, really, like, what is your obligation in that sense to actually be kind to everyone? I think honestly, this is where I'm coming from. It's a cultural thing. I genuinely believe that is the truth, because whether it's I think you could depict cultural, or I suppose your personality in general. I am one of those people that I just can't, like, you can tell when I'm lying. If I don't like you, it's written all over my face. But I can't be fake nice very easily. Like, I really struggle to be fake nice. Like, if I don't like you, it's going to be written all over my face, and you're going to smell those pheromones a mile away. But if I do like you, I will treat you so well, sort of thing. And I'm not, everyone falls differently on that spectrum. But obviously it's just for each person to figure that out, and this is the discussion topic that I want to sort of bring about today. Because I do think, I think it's really tricky, because sometimes it's not until you meet different types of people as to, like, people fear their unknown. Like, that is just the understandable outlook that people have on lots of different things, when it comes down to race, and it comes down to anything else, and it's interesting when, or anything else, people that go to uni, or people that have difficult life circumstances, when you start to actually see the truths of what actually has been the situation there as to why each individual will be the way they are, it makes a lot more sense as to actually what what the situation is in general. And obviously your internal belief system is also based on your life in general, will depict actually what your behaviour is. And it's important to keep in mind, because you can really get the wrong end of the stick from certain people, because you don't actually understand their kind of boat, and understand, because I think it's just something that, like, post-lockdown, like, it's so important to keep in mind, because, but I also think some people just have generally bad intention. So it's tricky. You have to have, like, discernment is such a fun thing, because you really get to make your own choices. Like, what I've seen about life as I get older, like, anyone really has the excuse to be as rude or as not rude as they want to anyone they want. That is just kind of the information point that I've seen, and that doesn't have to come with justification at all, actually, is my understanding of it. And that sucks when you're kind of scapegoated in that way. And I've seen it happen, unfortunately, even in the justice system. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've experienced it with my own two eyes. The justice system fucking over someone for the sake of a money ticket. And it really makes you lose a lot of faith in the system. even more faith to be lost in the system, because I've had a lot of faith lost in the system, because it's well and truly done me one. But clearly the justice system also does not have a fair standpoint in a lot of situations, and I think it's a lot more common than people actually want to realise. And that being said, because you know, it's so tricky when as a human and you're going through a spiritual awakening and you have to look at the kind of polarities of life and make sense of, you know, the new environment that we've moved into astrologically, but also to justify the actions of others and not just assume that they're in, you know, making nonsensical behaviour. But a lot of them, unfortunately, I feel like are. And to get your head around that as well is also a bit of a head fuck as well, to be honest, because it's not until you go through an environment and you expect behaviour that seems reasonable, I would say down to a belief system of an individual, but equally just any logical, commonsensical way of going about things in life in general, as per moral human belief system and behaviour, and then you don't experience the outcome that you expect, and then you're sort of like, okay, well, maybe, you know, there's more to the picture than what I thought, sort of thing. And I feel like maybe I'm one of those delicate souls that is the one that actually seems to go through these type of feelings, and I'm sure many people do, but maybe just earlier in life, to the point where it's, you know, a point where you can actually maybe make sense of it and sort of put those kind of boundaries into play and into action a little bit earlier than I suppose the rest of us that have to go through it. But we all develop at different times and stages. We all develop at different places in life and such like that. But yeah, it's definitely a phase I'm at the moment where I think rejection is redirection, and I'm referring specifically to the justice system myself, because after feeling fucked over by many institutions and relationships, actually, and groups of people in general, you have to then sort of reevaluate your emotional system and your psychological system and your belief system to a point where it actually starts to make sense to you again, because this is the joy and the terror of spiritual awakening, where something will happen and it will be completely ripped away from you, all of your kind of sense in a situation, and then all of a sudden you have to build this new reality based around something very, very like different, and that sucks. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't suck. It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's exciting. It's creative, actually, and I'm sure people will experience spiritual awakening differently, but I feel like I would consider myself a creative person, and I think to consider the idea of this in a way where you could consider it a creative thing. I'm just trying to figure out where the mic is. Just to move my mic away from me a minute. I don't know where it is. So if you can consider it like a creative experience for creatives, you can look at it very much like building the life that you want. It has to be different for different people. Like, I can only come at it from my outlook, and obviously people that will listen to my podcast may or may not have my outlook. I'm one of those people where I'm a very visual person. I'm a visualizer and I'm a manifester. So if I'm like, okay, I want to go to the gym, I want my gains, you know, I want to lose a bit of body fat, you know, whatever, I want to have this look, or this look, like, that's the way I will go down that middle route and actually achieve the outcome that I desire. But other people are obviously very different. I'm not going to go through every single aspect of that. Is some people are very logistic. They look at it like a tick box. They think, oh, well, I'm going to think about it as, I'm going to meet this criteria, I'm going to meet this criteria, I'm going to meet this criteria, you know. And someone else will come at it from, okay, well, I have to go mainly on my intuition, or, you know, whatever. Like, people honestly have completely different outlooks on things, and I love how society consistently breaks down the belief systems built by toxic and unhealthy propaganda-based trauma systems from history past, from things like the genocide and things like the World War II and such like that, and obviously slavery and things like that, for people to actually open their minds up a little bit and actually think about other people besides themselves, because to be honest with you, the karma is pretty tragic, and that is the truth. So obviously, yeah, it's obviously dependent on the person, because we will all look at things from very, very different angles, and I think to hold space for that is actually super important as well, because I did a podcast like yesterday on, which I haven't actually yet posted, though it will be posted probably by the time this one goes up, about the aspect of having to meet anyone where they are and to actually hack your decision-making brain to think, yes, this does not align with me, this doesn't actually align with what I'm indoctrinated into, my family belief systems and my moral compass. Even, I mean, I say moral compass, it's good to be aligned, it's aligning with your moral compass and unaligning from generational from generational like trauma and things like that, and from like and protecting yourself from the law and from finding yourself in uncomfortable positions, and rehabilitative experiences, mental health wise, through the fucking prison system and such of that degree, because many of us, not all, but many of us will come from very chaotic backgrounds where we weren't given the best tools to actually navigate these experiences, so you have to figure all that shit out. And it's very because I'm not being funny as well, there's this level, and I don't think it's actually always socioeconomic. It can be. I think if someone has a decent job and justifies prickhead behaviour because they've got a pay slip, that can sometimes be overlooked, because money, unfortunately, can be, I wouldn't say it hides a multitude of sins, but what I would say is it pays people off enough to the point where they can let it go, is my experience. And that being said, like, I'm just making the point that, like, everyone has room to improve themselves, some more than others. As I say, our priorities will take place for that one. And because I've seen, like, I'm not being funny, you're not exempt from humanity just because you've got a paycheck, and I think a lot of people need to consider that when wondering why they're not in the place they want to be in life, by the point they want to hang themselves, jump off cliffs, stab themselves in the neck or whatever, and actually wonder, do you know what kind of person am I? What am I serving in my life besides myself and my own paycheck right now? What indoctrination have I become brainwashed by that's actually saving me from my own thriving? That is an interesting perspective, because I definitely feel like I was in that boat myself, actually, and I feel very much in a much freer headspace to actually roll with the waves of life and actually be able to reevaluate things in my own personal circumstances, which I'm very lucky to have, because obviously I'm making this podcast, aren't I? So I must have enough free time to do that. Anyway, it's just, I don't want to blather on about social economic class and status, because I genuinely think that I have literally forgotten this, because I feel like I lived in a very low class areas for a little while, and the lower class areas often, I wouldn't say they glamorize, yeah, they do, they glamorize the richer areas, because of the fact that they have a significant amount more of financial privilege, and that makes you think that the upper class have this massive privilege, which they do, but equally what it doesn't do is it doesn't save you from the same demises that everyone in any other socioeconomic state does. And I do find that money, having experienced this myself, money can actually hide a lot of trauma, because you can be like, oh, well, like, they've got everything they need, they've got this education and they've got this family with all this money and this, that and the other. And that really is like actually a very, very damaging thing, especially to children, because they start to believe that, you know, money is a supplement for health and for well-being and for happiness and for thriving and for connecting to their actual inner self. Like, just because you get the work done, do you know what I mean? And that is very much a message pushed by society and obviously systems which have a function in their own right, but also a very productivity obsessed place, which, as I say, it serves the mass, but it doesn't serve the individual on every single basis. And that is obviously what it is, of course. So that being said, as I say, I don't really care to blather on about socioeconomic topics, because I honestly don't think it's actually a massive definition actually as to why people have like these issues. These issues are going to be there regardless of what your price check looks like. And actually, funnily enough, the people that are so far up the socioeconomic ladder are actually sometimes the ones that really have to check themselves more than others, and you can sit there and laugh at them, but they won't care because they've got too much money flying out their arse, so that's actually not going to bother them anyway. So yeah, that being said, what it is, like, no one's gonna just forget about rude and unnecessary behaviour. Anyway, without getting too emotionally triggered, it's really not honestly necessary actually at this point. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, people in general, because it's tricky, because obviously we all prioritise ourselves in our own particular lives and in our own particular circumstances. I think it does get to the point, though, this is what I found in my level actually, to find that it gets to the point where people become so predictable actually in their ways, especially the ones that have serious attachment issues, mummy issues, mental health, probably generational repressed mental health concerns and such like that, that you see it so clearly and blankly that, like, it just becomes boring. Like, I'm not a doctor, like, I'm not a therapist, I'm not paid, do you know what I mean? I'm not here to challenge your belief system. I'm here to thrive in my own. So with that, you can actually, it's actually a very powerful energy, to be honest, to come at something with, what's it called, with the vigor of justice, because justice and transcendence is a lot higher of an energetic frequency than fear or, you know, anger or anything like that, and sort of like even like drive or anything like that. It's a lot higher of a frequency actually, and actually becomes a lot more sort of easy to navigate things when you're actually not too interested in what something else is going on, when you've sort of transcended that experience in general, because there will be people, like, you will always get someone that, you know, my own partner included, he is the one that actually reminded me that people do like to pick shit with people just for absolutely no reason. And to be honest with you, it's quite funny, because I think a lot of places actually, the jobs and such, they actually do kind of validate that sort of behaviour where, like, if you're working security, for example, if you like to pick at someone, it can actually be a real benefit, because what that means is you're comfortable to pick and prod a situation to find out if, you know, there's something to be worried about, if there is any sort of, you know, police matter to involve or anything like that, or anything, if there's any harassments or anything of that like to be considered as a public issue or not, or whether someone is obviously above board and is going to sail through that without any issues whatsoever. But obviously in everyday life, taking that mentality to the individual can end you up in a lot of shit in general. So anyway, that was a quick digression. But anyway, what was I actually trying to talk about? Yeah, so different outlooks on things. You know, I think on a gut level, I think when you start to really do that mindfulness level of actually kind of reflecting in the self on a situation in the moment, and you get good enough to actually think, do you know what, I can fully, in my own capacity and what is necessary for myself, analyse this situation adequately, move with it with peace, and with enough peace for myself, where I'm not going to upset myself or others. Well, if I upset others, and a lot of the time you can't control how someone else feels. If they're triggered and they're going to be triggered by nothing, then that's up to them. But you know, when you get to that point, it's very freeing, and it's also like there's a lot of power in it, as I said. But I also think equally it is worth, when necessary, holding space for circumstances and dynamics that you wouldn't jump to kind of considering in the everyday. Like, it is important, I think. I mean, not to keep like your mind so open that like, oh, I have to consider every single aspect of every single person, but it's like there is like people's outlook on social etiquette does vary, but there is a sense to say that, and I think actually the human brain does actually, I feel like, kind of do this for you to the extent that is necessary when you heal yourself. Like, again, I can only speak from my perspective. I'm sure a lot of people don't come into life with fuck tons of wounds and confusion about lots of different life aspects, but also we all have places where we have unknowns in situations where we're going to reject something because we don't know it. But it's like, that being aside, like, you're literally going to, like, it's really healthy. Like, I can only obviously speak from my perspective, because obviously everyone will find something very different to actually observe about things and move at things in different paces and such like that. But if you do actually have a think and actually set, like, it's up to you individual. This is what I've done, and I feel like it's a great way of looking at things. It's like, if you set yourself, you can say, like, because I'm a visual person, I'm like, let's look at how I want to be perceived and how I want to react to something, and then you can set that standard for yourself. I've spoken a lot in past podcasts, which I have not uploaded actually, but need to go through, and will start to, I'm hoping in the very near future, to think that, because they are good podcasts, I just haven't got around to it. I've been really busy with other things. To think like, this is like, to set yourself an expectation and set yourself a standard, because I'm not being funny. If you've got a narcissistic mother, or you've got a mother that's got wounds from her own generational issues, to set yourself that goal, and I think people do this in different ways. I think to set yourself that goal, even especially as an adult, I do believe in cutting off toxic relationships, but I also believe in kind of contact to whatever serves the person to the degree that it is. But it's just an example that I'm using to say, like, I'm not going to allow a lifetime of watching someone get completely triggered by their own generational trauma, which in my case was World War II. She's half Polish, and there's a lot of generational trauma there that I've had to try and understand throughout my life. And that is just something where it's not actually worth, allowing someone else's behavior to dictate your own. There's a lot of strength in that, and there's a lot of power in that, because people anywhere are actually going to try and trigger you, and you would be surprised to how quickly they will actually stop trying to trigger you once they realize that you've got control of yourself. Because a lot of people, when they feel out of control of their environment, they actually want to control other people, and so that manifests as triggering another person. And when they find out they cannot have that control, their entire motive for bothering you in the first place is actually gone. And that is exactly what you'd want, really. Because I talked a lot about, because I think in general life, like, rejection is redirection, and to apply that for the mass of other people is great. Because I'm telling you now that there is a lot of people that have tried to demand my energy in past years that I've really not wanted to demote any energy into, and have really not served me whatsoever, but I've had to tolerate that interaction and experience because of whatever obligation I put myself into. And you will, like, the universe will eventually work that shit out to the point where you will gain back your autonomy from a situation, actually, and kind of become back on your own route, to the point where you're not going to actually give that energy to someone again. It's like when you break up with a toxic ex, you realise where you went wrong, and you move forward with a more healthy attitude, and with more kind of a stronger mindset on a more defined mindset on moving forward in general. Because it's there's a belief system to say to actually learn things from people. Sometimes it's very interesting how you can spend an amount of time with a person and they can rub off on you in a way where you either become, I wouldn't say rub off on you, that can happen, but I think that's more of like someone cheering someone else up is the benefits of that. But sometimes to understand a person by spending time with them, but I genuinely, like, some of that can come from internal, like from imagination, do you know what I mean, from the mental logistic side of it. You don't have to spend time with arseholes every day to remember that they're arseholes. You just let them be what they are. And there's definitely a lot of power in that. And I think it's something as well very powerful to say, do you know what, I'm not interested, and it doesn't matter, I'm sorry, what institution that you believe you're from, what credentials you believe to have, what money you believe to have, where you believe you are on the ladder of life. If I don't care to fuck with your energy, I'm not going to. And for someone to assume that because of their own social belief system is quite patronising and rude, and I will not actually accept that. Like, that was quite heavy and strong, but sometimes it does have to be said, because I think sometimes there are people that are so vulnerable and actually have so much childhood trauma and actually throw themselves at the system, are fucked off, that it doesn't fix all their problems, and actually have a go at people that actually do care to work on themselves. And that is just so backwards and out of order. I really can't fuck with it. Do you know what I mean? At all. So that being said, I can hold my head high in a lot of situations to just think, yeah, I hope I am sending you repelling energy, because quite frankly, I'm not interested in sharing my experience with you as of now, or probably ever. And there's nothing shameful to say that. It's like, learn to say no in life. Otherwise, you will literally spend your entire day and your entire life floundering around people that have absolutely no idea what the fuck they're doing. Or, equally, if they know what the fuck they're doing in their own lives, that's fine, but you don't know what the fuck they're doing, they don't know what the fuck you're doing, and there's just no point investing energy into it. And there's so many people that I don't think have learned this lesson. I saw this absolutely hilarious Instagram post yesterday, and it was basically surrounded around girls that try and throw themselves at your bloke because they've got this like ego complex which tells them that they've got this one-upmanship on you. And basically it was where this girl stays home from her job, waits for this couple to come downstairs, and is like, oh my god, like, I can't believe, like, you're here, like, wow, let's have a games night and blah blah blah. And the couple are like, we just wanted to spend it together, so I thought you were going to be at work. She's like, no, silly, don't tease me. And it's like, no, I actually don't like you, I actually don't want to spend time with you. And it really fucks me off, those people sometimes that like don't actually understand, because I would consider it a level of a mixture of neurodivergence and a chaotic and antisocial personality, and, well, not even antisocial personality, just like a reptilian-based kind of chaos-seeking, trauma-finding, terroristic kind of person. And I just have absolutely no time for that. I don't think I ever have, actually, interestingly enough, because I'm sort of beat myself up sometimes. Well, I wouldn't say beat myself up. Sometimes it's a negative to find that you're a highly sensitive person, but for that type of thing, it's a real benefit, because you can just avoid that type of shit. But then it's equal, like, this is the journey I'm on with the spiritual awakening. It's so important, though, like, not to become bitter and to become, like, nasty yourself, and to have this air of resentment, or actually, because it's hard to sort of, I don't know, I'm finding this balance, I suppose, and I think that's the case in adulting, but also in ADHD in general, because I have spoken before how ADHDers find it so much harder than the average people in the world that don't have ADHD to actually find balance and actually not become triggered by things, because it's just, their neurodivergence is just so much more challenging than everyone else's brain that actually develops their frontal lobe at 24, whereas the rest of us may never actually develop our frontal lobe. But it doesn't actually then become an excuse to be rude and nasty and try and fuck with people that you have no business being involved near. And just because some people don't understand their place in life doesn't mean that you have to then pick up the slack in that area if you don't want to. I did do a recent podcast about the benefits of schmoozing. Schmoozing sometimes in situations really can just get yourself out of a fuck ton of shit that you know, if you're dealing with a difficult person or you're dealing with someone that you have to be around for whatever purpose or another, schmoozing can be a great asset to your repertoire of social skills, to the point where it's actually very beneficial, to the point where you may just blow so much smoke up their ass, they're literally just not going to actually bother you, which is great. But I find myself even talking in this format, getting real, like you can have a time, like I think this is where it's really important to, whether you do a podcast like I do or whether you journal or anything else, to let out the real shit, but then also to then be able to put your emotions, I wouldn't say put your emotions in a box so much, maybe put your experiences in a box, close that box and be like, right, now it's my time to adult now. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's my time to actually implement the actions that I have found that I want. I understand the logistics as to, but because otherwise I have noticed, and I would assume, it's too difficult to mentalize each individual's personal circumstances and why or what their behavior may be, especially if you live in a very populated area. So to set that expectation for yourself of like, do you know what, I'm going to kind of rock through life with this mindset of like, there are like setting boundaries in whatever place you may be in general. It's just always going to be the answer, and then therefore you don't get resentful because you're wasting your energy on souls that honestly are not going to take notice of what you're doing or what you're talking about or what you're for or what your purpose is in general, because they probably haven't done that work on themselves. And yeah, I feel like I've basically I could kind of digress and apply this to many, many different areas, but I feel like it's a convenient break point for me. Definitely will be using my own advice. Thanks for listening.